I think too, one way to stay even keel, one way to stay we have to always remind ourselves of our purpose, and that our purpose remains bigger than our problems. And that can be hard advice to follow at times, because when those problems, big or small, they start, taking in space in our head, and it's hard to flush them out. So that's where we better have things to cleanse it.
Welcome to the JAMODI Podcast. Today we're joined by the co-host of the Hardwood Hustle podcast, Sam Allen. After a successful college playing career, Coach Allen spent 12 years coaching college basketball. He founded Blue Collar Basketball 15 years ago and has been training youth up to college and pro players. His program has 25 travel teams from youth to 17U. They run a 3-on-3 league, winter leagues, as well as tournaments. Coach Allen spent 10 years as a PGC director and the last 6 years on their PGC coaching team, helping mentor and coach coaches all over the world at all different levels. Alongside Coach TJ Ruzine, he's hosted the Hardwood Hustle podcast for years. They do an outstanding job of educating, empowering, and encouraging coaches all around the world. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at JAMODI Podcast.
The JAMODI Podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
Well, man, just want to thank you again so much for coming on here and giving up your time. And your friendship has always meant so much to me. And anytime our paths have crossed, whether it's at a PGC thing or getting to do something like this, you were on, golly, it's probably been 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago now. I know I've done about 200 episodes since our talk. So, man, just thank you so much, Sam. You're one of my favorite people for coming on and doing this.
Yeah, man, I love it. Excited to do it. Love what you do. Love our time together. So, yeah, excited to see what all we can cover today.
And tell me a little bit how blue collar coaching is going right now.
Yeah, it's going good. This time of year for us is slower than other times of year. We have some leagues going on, but then our heavy season of our travel ball team starts up here in a couple months and runs, early spring, late winter through the summer. So, yeah. But I am coaching. I'm doing some youth coaching right now, so I'm trying to keep
I do want to go into that. You mentioned before we jumped on here about coaching your daughter's 4th grade team. And I got to ask how much of all of because you get to teach coaches, you're a coach of coaches now. And how much of the things that you teach others do you find yourself being challenged with those 4th grade girls? Or is it pretty easy for you to do that?
It's not easy. Yes, I do feel challenged. Like last year, my daughter started playing last year for the first time in 3rd grade, right? And my wife came to me and Sarah, she said, "Hey, Katie Grace wants to play basketball." I said, "Oh, really?" Because she had never shown interest. Like, and basketball is like a big part of our family with me and then my boys, and she said, "Oh, by the way, you're coaching her too." I said, "No, I'm not coaching 3rd grade girls." She said, "Yeah, you are." I said, "Yes, ma'am." And I said, "Well, you're coaching with me." And so the two of us coach together. And I laugh because Sarah's not a competitive person. So we're on the bench during games last year and she'd be like, "Great job, so and so." And I would look at her, I'd say, "No, that girl did not do it. Don't tell her she did." But she's like just Miss Positive and so I call her our culture coach. And so she just loves on the girls really well. I say, now back to your question is like just last week last year I did this sounds self bragging or whatever, but last year I really was ultra positive, kept main thing, like just trying to teach the girls how to play basketball. We had fun with it, ended up having a good year. And then this year I found I'm coaching a lot of the girls for the second time. And in our last game, it was really competitive, like really tight. And I found myself like in competitive mode. And so in huddles, I got pretty fired up and I caught myself and I said, "Okay, I think I even said to the girls, hang on, everybody take a deep breath, me included. But here's a real thing is you're a competitive person. I see this. Actually, it happens a lot in youth sports, right? So who coaches youth sports? Parents. Who are sometimes parents? Sometimes you got parents who are really driven and they're like a really high driven salesperson who's, wheeling and dealing all day, and they're competitive, and then that's just who they are, and they bring that into another competitive environment. And so I don't think parents are, the ones that are making it bad. Like, they're not trying to, but it is hard to get yourself in a different frame of mind when, because when I walk on the court with a group of third or fourth grade girls, it's different than when I walk on a court with high level high school or college or, really committed players. So something you got to be aware of and constantly check yourself on.
I would love to. I'd probably pay pretty good money to come to one of your games and watch you on the sideline. And I would love to see the relationship between you and your wife and how she probably balances you out in a really good way there. Probably on staffs, though. I would think for high school coaches, you need a little bit of that too, where there maybe is the head coach who's a little bit more intense, and then there's the kind of what you said, the culture guy or people that are there when players come off the floor, checking for more understanding with the players, getting a little bit deeper, or then even not repairing feelings or anything like that. But if there has been some tough talks, getting them back, in a good mindset. And this sounds like you guys are just a dynamic duo right there.
I don't know if we are. We have fun with it. I think Sarah probably at times thinks, oh, what did I sign up for? And I do have to I've just this year, we played like 4 games, and I got in the car a couple of times, said, hey, I'm sorry. I know I got into it a little bit there, but youth basketball is fun. You got to make sure the girls are like, here's the quote, right? It's what defines me as a successful season isn't if my girls win a 4th grade championship. It's if the girls sign up for 5th grade. And I think that I keep that in mind a lot. Like, it's not like, do I want to win? Sure. But like, if all we're trying to do is win, then we're going to lose sight of like the girls actually having fun, because they're 3rd and 4th grade. These girls are like, they just want to like have fun with their friends and smile and go eat ice cream afterwards. And so it's important that you
Can't wait for ice cream and oranges after the game. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think you can take that mentality, or should take that mentality, to a high school program?
Well, it's funny. Okay, make sure I answer your question, because what triggered first for me, I did this social media post for our PGC coaching, so you may have seen it, but it's Joe Mazzulla talking about having fun. A reporter asked him, Joe Mazzulla is a pretty deep thinker. I don't know him well, but like he thinks about and he answers with intentionality. And he said, well,
Yeah.
did you see this? He's like, I don't know, is having fun. Like, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask. Like, what does that mean? Because like sometimes people say, well, we just need to go have fun. And what that really is it's a camouflage. It's a cover for things aren't going as well. So we need to just say, let's have fun, because we're thinking too much or we're too when reality, sometimes that's true, man. Like, we need to go have fun. But what if that's code language for player A is not playing well, therefore player A is playing less minutes? Okay, let's dissect. So parent emails Coach Sayman and says, Coach, Chris, he's just not having fun anymore. Like, you've taken the love out. Well, maybe the coach needs to own some, but maybe Chris isn't working as hard in practice. Maybe he's not listening to the coaches as well. Maybe he's not being a good teammate. Therefore, he's not playing as well. Therefore, his minutes are reducing. But then we just throw a blanket over it and say, we need to have more fun, when the reality is, no, we skip like 5 steps there. And so in high school basketball, to your question, I mean, you've been in high school athletics for a while. Some of my best friends are high school coaches. I talked to we're doing this thing in our PGC coaching where I talk to about 15 to 20 high school coaches a week for 30 minutes on a Zoom call, trying to help them, mentor them through things. And I think kids should have fun, but let's define what fun is.
Yeah. You nailed it. I wrote down define fun because to me, and I think this is where maybe the fun part of coaching is taking these players that some just barely like it, some love it a little bit, and then a couple live it. And you got this weird dynamic of all three of these pieces that you're trying to fit together in a team. So you're almost defining what fun is. And fun is the process. It's all of it. It's the skill work, it's the film, it's the post-game talks, it's the pregame warm-ups, it's team meals, it's the Saturday morning practice after a tough loss or a win. It's all fun. And then it's almost how to me, you can make all of those things fun just by the approach that you take towards those activities. If you're positive, then you can almost make all those things I listed there. I think you can make them fun. But you're still, and then also too, I think we got to get away from is fun doesn't mean you're not working hard. Fun doesn't mean you don't have purpose with what you're doing. And so I agree with you totally. Having fun is I've seen that email, coach. I've had that talk with parents. It's a blanket statement that they throw out. It's almost like when a parent says they've stole your confidence or a coach stole his confidence. Okay. Well, let's really find out. Is he not getting the playing time and is he not making shots in games? That has to be because the coach is stealing his confidence. It's not because Johnny doesn't train fast or he doesn't train with pressure or he doesn't get in the necessary reps to actually earn the right to be confident. I always go back to Dina Evans' video that she did years ago of nobody can take your confidence, but you can give it away. But all that goes back to what you said with defining fun, right on the money.
Well, yeah, let's double click on that for a second. So everything you said was well said, like the film, the skills workouts, the team get-togethers, at a teammate's house. Like, yeah, if you and I lived together, if you lived here in Atlanta or I lived in Texas and I drove over to your house on a Saturday morning and said, Matt, let's go for a run. And me and you ran, for 3 minutes down the road and back and said, all right, see you later. This may be a horrible analogy because I just came up with it in the moment. Well, like we ran for 3 minutes. We probably just got up a sweat or not even, and our heart rate barely got going. But if I said, hey, Matt, do you want to go do something together? There's a half marathon in 2 months and we're going to go raise money for kids with cancer. And, you and I have been talking about doing some hard stuff. Well, and you and I, 3 mornings a week, we woke up at 5 a.m. and we ran 6 miles. And some of those mornings it was raining and it was cold. And some of those mornings your knee was bothering you and my shoulder hurt, but we did it and we worked really, really hard at it. And then we went. My point is sometimes fun is like doing really hard things with a group of people where we held each other accountable. The days I didn't feel it, somebody pulled me along. The days they didn't feel, I pulled them along. And then we went and we sometimes accomplished that goal. And then, oftentimes in basketball, you fall a little short of maybe of a trophy or a championship or something. But hard things that you have some passion around, I think is fun. And then I think the other word, and I've just now came to me, but like joy versus happiness. Like, why don't we find joy? Joy is more internal from within, whereas happiness, it's dependent on external things and external outcomes. So if coaches, and we as coaches could do a better job with our players, being a transformational coach by how to teach our players how to find the joy. And maybe last thing I'd say on this that came to mind was the struggling player who's like not playing as well, who the parents think the coach is messing up, like they truly may need to look within. Now, I've had really committed players that are like so serious about it. They actually do need to relax their shoulders, and they're like, they went 8 for 9 at the free throw line. They had 3 turnovers and they scored 28 points and had 12 rebounds. And all they think about is the one free throw and the 3 rebounds, and they're so wound tight. Now that we need to teach them a different type of fun than the player who doesn't take ownership. So to me, there's like some customization to this fun conversation.
That's probably the art of coaching a little bit, is knowing what your individual players need at that moment, knowing what your team needs. Because going back to what would actually be kind of outward, people would say, yeah, that's fun. Like, let's play a game like Big Red Shooting. Big Red Shooting is you put a liter of Big Red Cola right in the middle of center court. And you got 4 teams on each corner, each with a basketball. And on go, they're all bowling the basketballs at Big Red. And whatever team hits Big Red first, knocks it over, gets to go over to this basket and shoot as many threes as possible, each worth 1. The other 3 teams band together and they all together try to make 10 to stop that team from scoring a lot of points. And then we reset Big Red and we go. There may be a Saturday morning practice after a tough loss or tough moments where you need to inject some actual fun, play a game where your players come in thinking, man, this may be a bad one. This may be grueling, that we're about to get our stuff handed to us. And then you kind of flip it and you have some fun. I think that's where guys, I probably like TJ and coaches way better than me, just have a good feel for what their team needs. And sometimes it is a little bit of fun, like Big Red Shooting.
Well, TJ shared a story where they had like a really tough loss. They're riding the bus home. Maybe, I don't know. The details don't matter. Maybe they lost 2 in a row or whatever. They're riding home. The coaches are talking on the bus ride, and the assistants are all like, yeah, we gotta grind it out. We're not tough enough. We're not playing hard. And TJ says, practice at 6 a.m. And then he tells the guys, so 6, and all the guys are thinking, well, then later that night or something, again, TJ, I'm probably messing up the story, but you'll get the gist of it. He texts Graham and says, hey, I need you to go pick up 3 dozen eggs. He texts his other assistant and say, pick up 3 packs of bagels. Hey, pick up some bacon. I'm bringing it. And they come and they just made breakfast for the team and said, and TJ's message was, hey, we're not doing a good job of serving you guys. We've been grinding on y'all a bit, and we forgot what this is all about. And they just ate breakfast together. They didn't even have practice. And so, but that takes, like you said, you got to read the room. You got to know your team. Sometimes it is to have a hard practice. Maybe, sometimes that is the answer, but sometimes it's to remind, we are playing a game, but in high performance, and I would say high school varsity and above, like it's somewhat of a performance-based sport where we are trying to go perform at a high level.
And I don't think you necessarily do that the first time there's a tough loss. I don't think you set that presence of, hey, when something bad happens, we're gonna throttle back and we're gonna take it easy. I do think there are, especially early on when you're trying to set so many standards throughout a season, but then where we are right now, it's late December, and we played 16 games at Midway. I think most teams are probably about halfway about to enter district play, where you have a good idea of who your team is at this point, how they handle failure, how they handle success, what gets them going. And I think that's when you can really start to make an educated guess on what do they need today. And maybe it is a little bit of fun, or maybe it is a longer film session with some donuts. But in that film session, there's going to be a lot of truth, and we're going to take more time on this than we normally would. Or it is a practice where we put some of those arc trainers on the rims, and we're going to work on transition defense with a healthy dose of rebounding in there, because that's what we need. But probably that's where choosing to do those things at the right time, that's important.
I'll say one more thing on this topic is I've seen coaches who are extremely demanding, and very tough on players, have amazing relationships with those players. And I think that is what this comes down to, is the individual relationships. And so you can grind on kids and push them and strive hard for things and have amazing relationships where the kids actually appreciate it and they understand it. And then I've seen coaches who aren't very hard, who are really nice, but there's maybe not a depth to the relationship too, because it's fairly surface level. And anyway, I felt like I'm obviously bent towards competitiveness. I'm bent
Yeah.
towards something a little strong, tougher. And so I think it goes back when if you and I are in doing life together and you're holding me accountable, like there's going to be some confrontation and some challenge. And through that, we get real, we get vulnerable. And that's where
Yeah.
depths of relationship get really strong. I'm not saying every day we got to have some deep, has to be some deep conversation, or every practice has to be, but it does. The thread, I believe, amongst all this is the relationships. Yeah.
And purpose. I think with your relationships, what you're talking about, I think everything, the players have to feel like there's a purpose to what we're doing. If you're going to come in, to go back to your analogy of the 6 a.m. run, if it's just a run in the morning for a few miles, just me and you, sorry, dude, I'm out. Like I'm not doing that. But your purpose was bigger. There was an overarching theme to everything that you're doing. And so as long as players feel like this 6 a.m. workout, regardless of what we're doing, there's a purpose to us being here. Because if it's all games and fluff, I don't know if that really I'm competitive, players are competitive. If that really drives us, do we feel like we're improving from this? If it's all you're going to hate every second of this, I don't know. You might lose them a little bit. Maybe the purpose isn't big enough for some of those guys that just like it, that just want to be a part of a program and play, but aren't looking to get much more out of this game than being part of a team, which is great. That's a great motivation. But I think as long as they feel purpose to it, and I love your story about TJ, because I had written down one about Pat Knight shared about his dad. And you think of Bobby Knight as this guy that probably was a no nonsense ever or anything, but most people that talk about him that really knew him talk about how great the relationship was with his players and how his players loved him. And he said one time they had a horrible game. And he was expecting, even Pat as an assistant coach was expecting that game to be, or the next practice just to be grueling and hard and awful. And he walked in and Coach Knight had already had a table with cake on the table. And he said, "Hey, assistant coaches, come here. We're just going to serve these guys some cake." And now there might have been this idea behind that the players were soft, so that this is all they deserve is cake or something. But he served them cake, and then he said, "Guys, that's it for us today." And they walked out. And Pat said they stayed around for a little while, and the players stayed and had their own practice. And he talked to some of the leaders about how it was the hardest practice that they had had, and it was completely player led. But I think Coach Knight also, maybe just the brilliance of him knowing his team, playing maybe a dangerous card right there of giving them cake and just leaving. If they would have just eaten it and walked out, maybe he doesn't feel as good about where they're at. But I do think there's something to having purpose with what you're doing and maybe throwing some things in there that change up the regular flow or the monotony of what the season can feel like.
And I think you can tell me what you think about this, but I think high school coaches, you have a real challenge. High school coaching where at your school can be a completely different experience at another school. And meaning, you might be in a rural, you might be in a city, you might be in a suburban. You've got kids on your program. Maybe none of them have an aspiration to play college basketball. Maybe 5 of them do. Maybe, like you said, love it, like it, love it, live it. Like you've got a whole spectrum. And the reality is you might have 3 players that love it, and one of those wants to play college. You got a few that like it. They like being on the team. And then some couple, they might be on the team because they're tall and their parents made them play basketball, but they really don't like it. Now, I do think that's challenging to coach. And then some people say, well, I coached in college for a decade. And you would say, well, all the college players you coach love it. No, I mean, I played in college, you coach, like, no. And then you go to the pros and you think, well, they all love it. No, every team has this order of operation or these classes of players. I don't know what the right word is, but, some love it. And your job as a coach, I think, is to create an environment where they can enjoy coming there every day because they enjoy their teammates. They do want to get better. You got to find something to tap in and some kind of commonality And I think that answer is a little different for each coach, but I want to say that as like I have a lot of empathy for high school coaches who love it themselves and they want to have an impact on kids, but they're challenged with that reality in front of them.
Man, I love that. I love that you brought up the fact of all the boxes that you got to try to check as a high school coach because, like you said, those three groups that you have, I think a good challenge is to create an environment or a practice where every group feels fulfilled. Like, I got something out of this workout today. This workout was for me because you got those high achievers that live it. I've got a couple at Midway right now that I know that what their aspirations are, their aspirations to play in college. And there's one or two of them that are really living that out. Because it's not just yeah, that sounds fun to me, or I like the idea of doing that, but then the work or the habits, actions don't line up. So I got to create a workout that really drives those guys. But then you've got the other that they're good high school players. They could play in college if they wanted to, but maybe just don't have that drive. But they're going to help our team win, and they're getting into the culture. They're doing all those things. Well, I got to make that environment for them. And then you've got those guys that are filling out the roster that are great culture guys that just love the school, love that, like to play basketball, have enjoyed it since they're little, but don't want any part of it outside of these 2 hours that you have. I've always felt like going to we're going to focus on individual skill work. We're individual developmental program where we're going to start there. And then within those skills, we're going to give you a team concept where you can explore that space and use those things. But then it's all wrapped up in culture, which makes it the most fun place to be. Like, why are you part of this program? Because you enjoy being a part of it. I think that if you can kind of focus on those areas, maybe you're able to hit all of those boxes for players. What are your thoughts?
I think you said it well. Think I'm building on this, so redirect me if I'm not. But the other thing I think about, if I took over a high school program and you've got players, let's say you got 15 players. So I'll use an example. A few years ago, was running our local community middle school feeder program for all 6th, 7th, and 8th. And we had a young man who was probably our 15th best player out of 15 or out of 16. And he's young, so he hasn't hit puberty and all that, but he was our best teammate in terms like in the games. When the timeout was called, he's the first guy off the bench. He's the guy leading the defensive chant. I think there's a real place for those guys. He did his job in practice. I wouldn't say he made our team better because he was a great player, but he made he was a part of our culture. He was as much a part of our culture as the guy that led us in scoring. And I would highlight him probably on a daily basis in front of the team. I probably gave him more love than I did our leading scorer. The leading scorer is going to get the love because they're going to get the social media or the newspaper, the love from teammates around around school or whatever. And so we need to create space in an environment where roster spots 1 through 15 don't all need to be the same. We do need, and this is I'm kind of piggybacking on this. I need players who are competitive. We need to have a competitive environment. But actually, what if player number 14 and 15 aren't very competitive and they're not going to challenge it? When we go 5-on-5 in practice, like they're probably not getting many reps there, or they'll be our third team, and that third team isn't going to give much resistance, but they're going to get some reps. But they're culture people. They're great teammates. They know their role. Their parents aren't emailing me. They're not coming to me after practice saying, "Coach, how do I get more playing time?" It doesn't mean that never will happen for them. And so, I don't know. I would just think about that. I think if high school coaches are listening, you know, I'm not sure who you round out the end of your bench, but I think it matters. I really do think the end of your bench matters from a program, and if you want to build a championship level culture.
Love that. And I think part of creating those roles or having players that embrace them fully is transparency at the beginning of the school year with them, letting them know that almost a handshake, hey, here's the role that I I see you having. And if you can fulfill this, man, I love to have you. But I want you to know ahead of time that you don't have to do it. It's a challenging role to practice and to show up every day, to give your very, very best, but to not get sometimes the reward of playing time or the glory that comes along with getting to be on the floor, but how important that they could be. I think having those talks with them. Danny Henderson's a legendary coach down here. He was at Flower Mound Marcus when they had Phil Forte and Marcus Smart, won 2 state championships, were in 3 state championships, but they only played 6 or 7 players. And I know I just did the 6 or 7 thing, but thankful there's no students on this. I make my players or students, I wish I could make my students, I make my players do push-ups if they do the 6 or 7 thing right now. Anyway, edit all that out. But Danny Henderson would have only play 6 or 7 players, but he would have 4 or 5 others on the bench, and he would have meetings with parents and players before the year. You will not play at all, but I want you to be a part of this, and here's the role that I see you filling. I think that's one way where you can have those guys that round out your roster, like you said, but without the headache of the parents or them getting butt hurt or sad throughout the year that they're not getting time. Well, they knew this was going to happen. And then you do your very, very best to, like you said, to value them. And one way, and I apologize for rambling here, but I've borrowed this from TJ years ago, is the IUE talks. And I do IUE talks all throughout the season. And we just did one on Saturday, our last practice going into the break. We just came off of a win, the wins have been very hard to find starting out here at Midway, the first half of this season. We've been competitive in a ton, but we closed out a close one. And so that was great. But then we had our last Saturday practice and we finished it after Secret Santa with an IUE talk. And what I was blown away with, Coach, was how many times those few culture guys were highlighted by their teammates on the U. Love the way that this guy continues to bring energy, even though he's not on the floor. And so it's really nice when not only are we recognizing it, but also the other players that maybe are on the floor are recognizing that too.
Yeah, and on the flip side, when if your better players treat the end of the bench poorly, or like they're above that, which could happen in a high school environment where there's this pecking order that gets established or popularity stuff. And so on the flip side, if you see the top or the starters mistreating in a bench, like your culture's heading in the wrong direction, and I always like to think like, they say like in the pros, they'll make the rookies buy the dinner or carry the bags. And I don't remember who I was reading a book or something many years ago. It's like, no, we seniors actually carry the bag of the freshmen. No, veterans, you pick up the tab at the dinner.
Isn't that legacy about the All Blacks where they sweep the shed, the leaders sweep the shed or the locker room, keep it clean. It's just like flipping that leadership, those roles, those dynamics on its head.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And leaders eat last. Like, so how do we create a team like this that goes horizontal? If you're not watching this podcast and it doesn't go vertical, where it's like we have this vertical top down, and so yeah, I just think that's important, and I think it's more important now than ever in 2025 or 2026 that we really communicate as coaches the value that every player on a team brings. And there's only one leading scorer, there's only one leading rebounder, but there's so much in the game of basketball that you can do to provide value. I tweeted this the other day and I was shocked, like look down 24 hours later, because I don't tweet as much. It's like, I sent this tweet out, said there's 10 players on a court. One player has the ball. 9 players don't. The point what I was making, the majority of the game you play without, and everybody, it's become more popular to say that, but I just don't think we as in coaches teach it or know how to really communicate it. And I think we've got to do that if we want to create value across the board.
That's a good point. I saw that tweet. I think you're one of the best follows. Just to not I don't know how many followers you'll increase from this, but I do appreciate the things that you share. I tried to model something after you a few years ago. I noticed that you were doing kind of like 3-line posts where it would be a thought, a thought, and a thought. And I thought, man, that's really good. And if you look back, I tried it for maybe a couple weeks, but just like anything, you got to be consistent with what you do. So I really do. I like the way that you shared that one. And well, you were talking about how 9 without the ball and playing without it, and then it made me kind of think of when I talk about being a individual development program where we're going to spend 45 minutes a day on either ball handling, passing, your shot. I love the idea of walking to a gym and everybody has a ball in their hand and they're active and participating. But I wonder, part of me wonders is how much am I feeding this mentality of I have to have the ball in my hands to be successful? I have to do the things that our leading scorer does to be successful. So one of my favorite questions to ask the guys is, what do you feel like you need to do to help our team to win? What are things that you need, the role that you need to fill? And for some guys, they'll look at maybe our leading scorer, like a kid, like a senior, we have Antoine or one of those guys. Man, I need to shoot and score like him. And that's where we can maybe help redirect a little bit if they're thinking that way. Well, maybe in time you'll get to that role, but you can also be a great defensive stopper. You can rebound, you can take charge, you get on the floor, you can give great energy on the bench. But I think without realizing it, I may be contributing to the everybody wanting the ball mentality.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, it's good reflection. What I
Maybe
think
a little too
about.
hard. I'm being a little too hard on myself there, maybe.
Yeah, but I think it's a good reflection though too. Like two things could be true, which is you could spend 30, 45 minutes a day helping them improve their ball skills with the ball in their hands. Cause we do, yeah, let me say that. Yes, that could be true. And also could be true that they got to understand what to do when they don't have the ball. And then
Yeah.
when we do have the ball, it does matter what we do with it because we don't want to turn it over. We'd like to score it or complete a successful pass. So I think it does matter a lot what we do. Those mistakes are heightened when the ball's in our hands. So, but again, I think I'm probably saying this like for the 12th time. So if I get repetitive, but it's like, yeah, I think we just need to encourage players and highlight when they do things that they didn't have the ball in their hands. Hey, I slid over and in a gap defender cut off a penetration and made him make a one more, and then they took a tough closeout three, or something I said at the free throw line and reminded my teammate who can lose focus to box out and they got a big rebound, or I told them, hey, there's a screen coming and we blew it up and they didn't score, and so it reminds me of going back to where our conversation started with my daughter's team, where she made a shot in the game Saturday, and our best player and her were on the bench shortly after. Just while the team was playing, they were subbed out, and the best player on our team said, "Great shot, Katie Grace. That was amazing." And my daughter, and I didn't hear this. My wife told me later. She's like, "Hey, thanks, Reese, but you're the heart of our team. You're the heartbeat of our team." And there's these two 9-year-olds. Now, that makes me like smile and laugh, but it makes me really proud because think about,
No, you could actually get a little emotional thinking
yeah,
about 2 young players or players of any age talking like that. To me as a coach or a parent, that just makes me well up with pride and get a little teary, to be honest. Yeah.
yeah, me too. Because it's like, can you imagine hearing somebody say that to you as a teammate? Like you've been
Yeah.
a player, like when your teammate says something sincere about you, like that feels really, especially when you put a lot into it. When I have a teammate put their arm around me and say, "Man, I mean, I've had teammates do that when I was in high school or college and say something really kind, which I'm not gonna say, like, it means a lot, right? So I'm getting us off subject. Rein us back in if I am.
No, it's good. Now, it's a weave. We're weaving right now. And
Yeah.
so one thing is, again, to bring up TJ, and I mentioned this a ton over the years. One thing I borrowed from him too was the daily themes, just little tiny ways because culture is infused in almost everything that we do, and there's great moments where guys like him can stop a practice and see that culture moment and emphasize it. But then also we want to, like, I think for those conversations to happen, like you talked about, there has to be something that's already been developed within your team where those conversations feel normal or natural, where that comes out. So Tough Tuesdays is one where at the beginning of a workout, we get together for a minute with another player, we face each other, we share something tough in our life. We're building a connection with that person, but we're also teaching our players how to communicate something thoughtful. Thankful Thursday is another one that I think those 2 days together help them to see. And then finishing every practice or game with celebrations. What win or lose, we celebrate. And I've noticed even after losses, the celebrations are that much sweeter when we're together with the team because everybody's down. I'm frustrated. We're all thinking about all the bad. But then all of a sudden, little Johnny says, you know what? But you blocked out really hard. You really brought good energy. And then it starts to just go around the room. I think when you start to have, I don't think that conversation with those two girls happens if there's not other things happening in practice or within the culture of your team to create or foster that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I agree. The celebrations thing, that's just a non-negotiable. We're gonna do it. And you're in a circle and you see a peer-to-peer celebration, and this kid, it's most kids, not all, it's hard for them to contain that smile. It feels good to be celebrated. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think, yeah, if you're a coach listening, celebration is just a routine or a habit or a ritual, whatever you want to call it, that you do as a team, and you give a space. Could be 3 minutes, could be 5 minutes, could be 2 minutes, and let kids go around and celebrate. You can let it happen. I think there is, Matt, maybe teach at a younger level, you kind of train them on how to celebrate, right? Not like,
No doubt.
hey, TJ, you made a lot of shots. Well, yeah, that's okay. But like, could have been like, gosh, TJ, you really move around a lot on offense to get yourself open. So there's a little bit of a development or training of how to train them to see different celebrations without coaching it up too much.
I think you have to do that with every age. I mean, for the high school guys, it's just early on in the fall. It's just teaching them what to look for. What are they looking for? So when we as coaches celebrate, we try to model that of the things that we see that really jump out at us because it's not just yeah, man, way to score 30. That was awesome. Like, yeah, no crap. Like we're all happy for that. But maybe the way that you shot through and showed courage early on through some misses and kept firing away when they were sevens. I think that's a good way to put it. One thing going back to celebrating those guys that are the culture guys that don't necessarily get um, the attention that the leading scorer, rebounder, those impact guys do on the floor. Anything else? I've got a couple ideas that I thought I could share, but anything else that you have that you would do to be intentional or to find other ways to celebrate those guys?
Well, the guys that aren't playing as much, the girls or guys
Yeah,
not.
sometimes that 10 through 15 on your roster that late in or middle of the season, late in the season, just they're not finding time anymore, but they're still bringing things. What are some other ways that besides just maybe in a right before film, thanking them or celebrating them at yourself? Anything else
Yeah.
you could see doing?
So I think like maybe this is what you just said, a individual it's pulling them aside before
Yeah.
practice, putting your arm around them and saying, "Hey, I know you're not getting many minutes right now, and we're going down the stretch, and you probably won't be playing, but I want you to hear this. You are a valuable part of this team." And it has to be sincere. If they feel like you're not being sincere, they're not gonna believe you. And so you gotta, like, as a coach, if a coach is listening to me and said, "Hey, I like that idea. I'm gonna go do that," but they don't really believe it, like I believe it. Before I have that conversation, I might even say, "Hey, the game 2 nights ago when Chris hit that corner 3 and I looked down the bench and I saw you jumping up and I saw you high-fiving a team, like, I see you. I see you." And this team, anyways, my point is individual conference that is a specific celebration, but it also reinforces why that matters to this team. And you might even say, hey, Caden, what if you were down there and you were pouting and you had bad body language and you had your clothes on and out of the locker room right after the coach talks, and what if your parents were emailing me every day? Like, that would be awful. Like, our program would not be as good. I don't know if I don't think, I haven't done that, but that's enough.
Oh,
You
that's
can
great.
show the value by saying, what if it was, because we all have been there too, where you have that kid or that family, and I don't care what you say, man, that can drag you down as a coach.
No.
And it can
Yeah.
really affect, if you get too much of that, it could affect your ability to be a better coach and leader. I mean, some of that you got to cut out the noise as a coach, but that's what comes to mind. What are your ideas?
Oh, that's great. One that I haven't done yet, but I want to experiment with is culture clips. And I'm blanking on the coach that said it. I think it was Neil at Weatherford. I think he said it, but culture clips. So after a game, like I do this, we have a manager that's over on the sideline or kind of following the game a little bit. And she takes clips of the buckets that go in. I put them together in a quick highlight. So win or lose, there's an in case you missed it highlight film that goes out, and players get to see themselves, parents get to see the good things that we did. But culture clips would be when the huddle camera, when it catches your bench on a made bucket or a charge, and those dudes all lifting off the bench and fired up, hollering, celebrating. That would be something that, and I've actually texted one of my assistant coaches the other day saying, "Hey, let's start doing this, next game, or even let's look past the last few games and let's get some of these culture clips together. Let's zoom in on it and let's put that highlight film out because that's not something that is common. You typically see that the made buckets or the big plays, but that's one. Another way, there's a quick story that jumped in my mind when you said that you have to believe it, but I think the players truly have to, like you said, have to believe that what you're saying is actually important. Like they have to believe that you believe what you're saying and that it matters. Because Dave Bliss, my first college coach, he would come down when we're all out there shooting and say, Matt, come here. And be like, tell me what you think about this. And he would say it that way every time. He'd say, tell me what you think about this. And he'd talk about some wrinkle in flex, all the wrinkles you can do in flex that he wanted to talk about. I'm like, yeah, coach, I like that. It'll get Lawrence the ball a little bit more. Like I can see that. And he's like, oh, I agree. And you know what? Since I know you got this, I'm going to put you on the white team today. And the white team coach was the scout team. And, the first time he did it, I was like, okay, man, he trusts that I know this stuff and I'm going to go just practice on that team stuff. But after the third or fourth time, I was like, man, just tell me I'm not going to play. Like, just tell me that you don't really want to coach me in practice because the white team doesn't get coached in practice. They're the scout team. The coach that doesn't even know what we're running because he's out scouting is the one that coaches that team in practice. And so that just after a little while, I appreciate hey, you got this. I know you understand this. But you know what? I want to get those reps, man. Like I want you to coach me. So anyway, short story there.
No, I love that.
I thought. Go ahead.
Sorry. I know there's one quick thing on that. With the culture stuff, the other thing I think that's important to teach out of it is like the kid or the kids or the team that does that, it translates to life really well. Like you're going to be able to take those characteristics and go do well in other areas of your life. Like you're going to be offered multiple jobs instead of no jobs. You're going to get the promotion instead of being stuck. You're going to have more fulfilling relationships and friendships because you do all these things. It's how you do it, right? It's like we can all sit on the bench. Matter of fact, we all will sit. There will be teams on the bench tonight, tomorrow, but how they sit on the bench is everything, right? Are they just sitting there or are they in the game, right? And so I think that's a teaching point.
Coaches, want proof your players are working? Bology tracks every shot and generates workouts on the spot. No more guesswork. Train smarter today. Download the free Bology app.
And then the other, I don't know if we want to go down this road, but the other thing that comes to mind that you got to be a little bit aware of is like when we as coaches preach culture, I see this. I watch a lot of coach press conferences. That's kind of like a secret hobby of mine. I just watch like all different. I like to watch what coaches say and how they talk about their team. But when a coach is like culture, okay, if I'm at the mic and the reporter asks me a question, I'm like, culture wins. We just, next guy up wins. And I'm not, this sounds critical. That in itself is not wrong. But if you're not careful, what you could be saying is like, no, our culture, our coaching's so good, we just win. You can plug and play whatever player you want. We won here 5 years ago. We'll win here today. I'm articulating this. I don't speak on this much, but it's like, so I'm trying to workshop it right now with you. It's like, but you know what I'm saying? It could potentially almost turn it into a coach centric. We win because of my coaching and our culture, when we need to try to bring to light what the players are doing. And both could be true, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, I love that because whenever I see those, I cringe a little bit when I see it
Yeah.
because you can have a great culture and not win a darn game if dudes can't score or if dudes can't guard, if dudes can't and obviously you're hoping that the culture gets them more invested in skill work, more invested in whatever scheme you're running, and it keeps it like you said, it gets players coming from third grade to fourth grade, from 10th grade to 11th grade. They stay invested. But I do think it's one of those ways. How can we celebrate our culture without bragging about it or actually talking about it? Like that's kind of a way that I'd like to see that, or I try to do that. I want our culture to obviously put us in positions to where if we win or lose, we still feel like we win because of how we played, how we were together, how we handled adversity. But culture wins. Does that mean your culture was bad when you lost? Does that mean that it doesn't really matter, like you said, how well those players played or how they shot or executed? I don't know.
Well, I
That's
think too,
interesting.
well, you can do both. Again, I keep saying the two things to me, but like I could be
Pick a side, man. Like choose something. No.
But I could be at the microphone after the game and be like, "Hey, our culture here at such and such, we're a culture that works hard. We're a culture that has toughness. We're a culture of having each other's back." And then I said, we have players like, Matt Sayman. This guy every day shows up with his lunch pail, and he doesn't take a play off and one rep off when he does that drill we do every day for the 400th time. Man, Matt Sayman's a player that embodies our culture. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you're speaking of what your culture is in a positive light, and then you're talking about players who are you're highlighting them and bringing celebration, kind of back to our celebration thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think my point here is this, that I think coaches, it behooves us to have a strong culture, and we want that, but we have to be aware. I'm not going to say careful. I'm going to say we got to be aware of where it almost becomes a lot about us, the coach. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to do another podcast on this one because there's more to flesh out.
It's almost like we don't want basketball to become an idol in our lives or the things that we worship. We also don't want that to be something that I think you got to be player centered. I think it's always when you win, it's because the players did amazing things. They did
Yeah,
amazing things on the floor, amazing things in practice, amazing things with how they train. And it's not us as coaches at all. And then when we lose, we as coaches, we need to figure out a way to help our players to do this and that. It's our fault, right? Like kind of that. It's a little bit corny or a cliche to say, but I like that approach. I also think too, you and I have said that C word a ton. Culture. I think the best ones are the ones that don't have to talk about it. The best ones are where you don't even hear that word come up. It's just you can tell by the way that they talk or the way that they show up every day or the way that the guys celebrate or the way how hard they play or how much they believe. Like when I listened to that IUE on Saturday, I didn't have to say, "Hey guys, I think our culture is really moving in a good direction." Man, you just felt it because of what they were saying. Like they were talking like us. They were saying the things that we say that we've been saying since But to your point, it's the same way where, I mean, years ago when I was younger and probably had conversations with you, I thought it was system. I thought the system, playing a certain way, could always guarantee you wins, no matter who you had in the gym. And then you fail enough in a system and you realize it's not about that at all. Because system can be, it's coach centered. And then without realizing, I think culture can be something where that's us and we're almost like we're beating our chest without realizing it. I think it just always has to be about the players.
Yeah, and maybe another quick one on this one is like culture in a lot of ways is just an identity. You know, when you think of Houston basketball and, you know, what do you, if something comes to mind right away for most people that are basketball, you know, aficionado, like you think of rebounding, defense, toughness.
Wow.
Yeah. And you think of those, like, that's what comes to my mind right away. I mean, toughness is probably the lead word. And, you know, yeah, I'm not there every day. You're closer to the program than me, but I'm sure they talk about it and they do it every day. And I'm sure they have some wall signs too. So anyways, when you think about if you thought about the Spurs with Popovich, something comes to mind. Team basketball, high accountability. When you think, yeah, across, like, think of UConn women or any consistent winner, there's an identity that pops into mind because you've watched them play. When I think of Villanova basketball under Jay Wright, I think of toughness. I think of togetherness. Yeah, just some blue collar, you know, basketball playing dudes. But hey, I know one other thing. I'm shifting on you. This is your lead. You in our when we were texting about having this conversation, you had said something about like strategies for coaches to stay fresh or like different struggle this time of year that they're in the middle of it. I would love to kind of go into that, but we don't have to.
I want to. And so great job of pivoting. I want to say one thing about strategies that how we can highlight those players a little bit more, and then I'll bring us right back to that point. So I think social media can help with that a ton. When I took over the Midway job, I got to talk with a lot of players, and I did at-home visits with our seniors and returning varsity players. So I got to sit in living rooms with their parents and the kids and ask them. It was never about like, hey, what was wrong? I never went that direction. Or what did you hate about last? Because Coach McDade, the former coach, is a friend of mine. He was a great culture guy. And so I knew it wasn't in a bad place that way. But one thing that did come up is from a few different people was the idea that on social media, the same people were being highlighted. And that's really simple. It's really easy if you're just doing like leading scorers or dudes that are getting their name in the paper or getting awards, player of the week, things like that. So I think social media, kind of like the culture clips, is a way that we can highlight every player and make them all feel like they're part of it. And so there are different ideas here. One is have a next up picture. So a next up is a day or two away from the game, have a next up, and then have a running list of players' names and just check them once you put Johnny on that next up. Game day post, have that can be another list, and then check the name when you put Steven on there. And then every day, in my opinion, should have a theme. So on Mondays, it's get to know your Panther Monday. And so every player, every Monday, you know, it's the favorite snack, favorite this, favorite that. And then there's a favorite quote Tuesday, why I play Wednesday. And then on Thursdays, it's a staff or teacher of the week. But the great thing about this is it's just a running list of names. And I just go every week, make sure that it's a different person. But over the span of a season, golly, those parents, those kids are seeing themselves out there so much. Now, after games, we highlight what the score was. We highlight our top 3 players of that game. Those dudes are still getting that. But I think that's a way too. Social media, this was back in the mid 2000s that somebody said, if we're not using social media to highlight or promote our programs, then we're behind. That was in the mid 2000s. Now in 2025, I mean, guys, people like Duncanville High School, they have a coach on staff that's just the social media guy for a high school program. At Midway, we're not there. So I'm that guy. But I think that, man, as far as if we're going to have those guys 10, 11 to 15 that don't get a lot of time on the floor, but we still want them to feel like they are a part of it and highlighted, to me, social media is an easy way to do that.
Yeah, I agree. And if you don't do it, you're probably going to hear about it. I mean, it's such a big deal that you'll hear about it, or people will leave. They'll leave your
Yeah.
program and go somewhere else.
And all it costs is my time. That's it. And if I can set enough time for that and have a good plan with it, I think it's possible. And like you had said a second ago before we got on, I texted you just a thought of, what our talk could be about this time of year and being halfway through a season. It's kind of maybe those three buckets of you've got a team that's undefeated or they've won almost all their games going into district play. There's strategies for that coach and that team to keep things fresh and to keep moving forward. Then there's a team a lot like mine right now that we've won and lost some games. We're way more competitive than our record looks like. And so what's the strategy going into district play there of for myself or for my players? And then you've maybe got the group that, you know what? We've won one game this year. We're going to district play not feeling really good about where we are or who we are. And so maybe that's hard. Maybe that's a whole podcast in itself, those three. But as a coach this time of year, how do we stay mentally fresh, upbeat, positive, in your opinion?
Okay, I love this one, and we talk about it a lot inside our PC coaching community because, well, I'll just say it like we would never want a player to show up to a big game on 3 hours of sleep, didn't eat well, hadn't come to shoot around, didn't get extra shots up for a few practice leading up. Right, we want our players to be at their best when their best is needed. We as coaches don't. We're hypocritical. We don't do these things. We actually are in the worst physical, mental, and emotional state during the season. We eat the worst, we sleep the worst. We probably don't ever work out, or if we do, it's a lot less than when we do out. And I get it, like lived it, man. Like you do. You have on the road for games. You have to, watch more film, scouting your opponent. You might have to get on the road and go do a live scout. Now with Huddle and different film, there's probably less live scouting, but you've got then, a lot of coaches have a family or whatever. So all the excuses are built in. I use that word intentionally, excuses. And yeah, if I was being nice, I'd say reasons. But my point is, if you're a coach and you're preaching it to your players, follow your own advice. So you may not have time to do a 2-hour morning routine of working out, and if you read the Bible or doing your gratitude, you may not have 2 hours, but continue to prioritize yourself, number one, so you can be at your best just like you want your team to be at their best. I think that's important. Number two, we should have a consistent process in place where we kind of show up and do what we do regardless whether we've won our last 10 games or lost our last 10. There should be a process we follow, and we should execute that process so that our players, can learn to be consistent as well, right? If you just blow up on them after a bad loss, but you haven't held standards for 2 weeks, and all of a sudden you want to hold high standards because your team got beat twice, well, players see that. I think we just got to establish what type of program we want to run, what's our process, and then we got to execute it.
No, I love those reminders right there. I think first one right on the money with taking care of yourself, making sure your bucket's full. As a guy that just had a bag of Raisinets last night, chocolate covered raisins. It's funny. I always feel like I get in really good shape in the fall, then just fall apart and deteriorate. I drink too many of these, my energy drinks. I don't hydrate enough. One thing is, and I know you're a believer, and the full transparency here is just I haven't gotten the word in a long time, and trying to think of what's the reason behind that? I know what I believe. I know how important it is having that daily connection, those reminders. You never know what the Bible is going to teach you from day to day or what you needed to hear in that moment. And man, coach, it's been a long time. I think, you just
Hey,
like
so
what,
sorry,
go ahead.
apologize there. Like, I do think what you just said is important, right? There's a recognition, hey, I not working out as much, or I'm not getting in the word. Well, how I think that's like there's a lot of coaches like that do that. So how do we ensure, okay, I gotta find an accountability partner. Find, maybe ideally it's somebody on your staff.
Yeah,
Um, or it can be outside of that. And then, the best way to get in shape is to not get motivated. Like, motivation will die. The best way to get in shape, find somebody that's already doing it. Hey, can I start working out with you? Yeah, come on. And now you're going to get in shape. So it's like my wife Sarah went into this fitness challenge starting in November, and she's doing it with a couple of friends, and they have a little skin in the game for somebody to win. They got to do these, sir. Well, she comes with me every morning. She's not trying to motivate herself. She just has to get up and get in the car, and like, I'm going to be there, and now she's going to do it because she's going to be with me. So, just find people that will hold you accountable, and usually you'll achieve what you want to achieve.
That's
No,
really
I'm
good.
not I'm not
I'm gonna.
coaching I'm not coaching you. I'm sorry. I'm saying that to the coach listening.
No, I always take this as like, what can I learn from the person talking to me? Because if no one else listens to this, then I just got this hour with you holding you captive. And a lot of this has been great. And I think I've already borrowed a ton of nuggets from you today, but probably needed to hear that little one right there because that was super convicting I mean, that's been in my mind of how long it's been. And I'm not going to say the number. I'm not going to do that, but it's been a while. My wife and I were talking the other day. Again, it was like while I was eating a bag of Raisinets, I'm saying, golly, I'm in such horrible shape right now. I haven't worked out in 2 weeks. Well, and that's one thing too. I would say, and this, I'm telling myself this, but start small with these habits or things we're trying to put back in. What I'm guilty of is, okay, I'm going to start reading my Bible again. And so I'm going to read for an hour. Who has an hour? But like do 5 minutes, do a chapter. I'm going to work out for an hour and a half. Okay. So you tell me you got 2.5 extra hours throughout the day that you haven't been using. But no, do a 20-minute workout, walk on the treadmill, do something, and then just start cutting out sugar, doing all those things. But it's little things, not huge changes, especially not this time of year.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, you wouldn't tell. I learned this the hard way. When I left college coaching and started doing player development training, and I would try to, I'd have kids say, I want to be a college, they're high school junior, they want to be a college player and they're Division 1. And I would say, hey, you got to get 500 shots up a day. It's bad advice. Like, they would do it for 3 days and then just fall off the cliff. And so now the whole James Clear atomic habits approach, like, establish a habit first and then improve it, but don't try to improve something that's not a habit. So can we go to the gym and shoot for 15 minutes and get up 100 shots? Okay, if we did that for a week, okay, week 2 we'll go to 150 and we'll slowly climb the ladder. And that's not the catchy or the sexy or the fun way to say it, but that's really how you do it. You just start small, establish it, and then build on it.
And then, like you said, consistent process with your team, but that also starts with yourself. Having consistent process for when you put practices together, because what you don't want is as you get busy with other things. And then with high school coaching too, that's one thing going back to Midway that's been different than the last time you and I talked is I teach now. I used to have these wonderful study halls that for 3 hours a day I had silence where I just got so much work done. And so all of these social media things, it's been way harder to do now because I have 3 classes a day. It's speech communications. I'm enjoying it, but it's still something different that I have to do that. I have to be great for those kids. And as my principal said in my interview, she said, remember, this is the 90% of why you're getting paid. And I remember thinking in my head, like, no, it's not. It's the basketball. But she's right. That's the teaching part. But then having those consistent processes to where you're not walking into a practice unprepared. Because if you do that, then you're preparing to fail with your team. And they're going to know that. They're going to feel that. And things are going to slip and slide where all of a sudden you go into a game, you're like, crap, we didn't work on that press break, and we knew this was coming. That's the part where those consistent processes, like you said, I think they gotta keep showing up from day to day.
Yeah. And I think too, you start out this with like you got your different levels. Like, hey, we're uber successful, or we're in between, or we're just not winning any games at all. I think too, one way to stay even keel, one way to stay like always remind. We have to always remind ourselves of our purpose, and that our purpose remains bigger than our problems. And that can be hard advice to follow at times, because when those problems, big or small, they start, taking in space in our head, and it's hard to flush them out. So that's where we better have things to cleanse it, whether that's working out, whether that's gratitude, whether that's getting in the word, if you're a person of faith, whatever. Maybe it's all the above, but we've got to build, like, it sounds like I'm a gladiator. I'm not some warrior every day, but I have to win the morning. I'm not fighting for my life, but I am, like, I gotta go win the morning, because I know once I sit here at my desk and I start opening emails and looking at texts and making phone calls, there's going to be problems professionally and personally. And if I haven't built a strong self to prepare myself for that, then I'm weaker. I'm more vulnerable to allowing some of the negativity to engulf me. And I think that's really applicable to coaches. You had a bad practice, you lost a game, your best player got hurt, you got the parent email, your principal, calls you, your athletic director here, your whatever, like all that could be in one day. So it's important. I have a passion, you know, I'm a coach, you're a coach, like, I do think coaching's such an impactful job, and coaches had a big influence on my life, and so I think we gotta help each other out. We gotta speak life into each other, and, like, this stuff matters, because you play such an important role in somebody's life, and for the most part, I do this well. But I had an experience a couple of years ago where I feel like I fell short, because I had a lot of swirling things around me affect me in a negative way. And I don't, it was the first time I felt like, I'm not sure I did as good a job at shoving that out and keeping it out. And it affected my ability to lock in a little bit. So I know it's real. Maybe God was humbling me to teach me something, but go ahead.
No, I appreciate you sharing that, because I think my follow-up question to everything you said really comes kind of what you just said there, which is, how do you, or what's the advice for, and this could be no matter if it's your first year someplace or you've been in a school for a long time, but you're in it right now. We're right in the middle of it, about to start district play, and and I'm learning a lot about these teams here that I've never, a couple of them I've never seen play yet. And so you've got your seniors and this varsity team that you want. We're gonna fight all we, like my buddy Matt Garnett says, we want all the meat off the bone. Like, we just want to finish this thing the right way and take it as far as we can take it. And I want to be all in with them. But then there's this other idea of you're building for the future too. And so there you got these younger players, you got your sub varsity teams that, man, we're looking down the road of what could we be in the future. You don't want to look too far, and you want to stay present with these guys. And obviously, when, and if I talk to you in a month and a half and it looks like, man, district play is going the way we want, playoffs are right around the corner, then that's gonna, those events are gonna take care of themselves, and you keep moving forward. But there's this idea, especially year one at a place where, I mean, I'm so thankful for the buy-in from these guys and so thankful for what the direction we're heading. But I don't want to look past this year, this team, to the future too early, or at all. I want to stay present, locked in. But how do you do both? Where maybe I'm speaking life into the sub varsities or younger players, but still honoring and valuing, like, the fact that we're in this fight with our seniors and this varsity team. Don't know if that makes any sense at all, what I just asked, but I feel like a lot of coaches kind of have those two things going on inside of them at times.
I don't think they're competing against each other. And I guess so I look at it differently. Now, the only thing that I don't know, that I'm going to ask you a question so I can understand, are we The only time I could see it competing is when we're talking about game minutes, meaning, okay, we got an average team at best from a record. Like the reality is, we're not going to win our district or our region or our conference. We're like a middle to back of the season, not back of the season. We're middle of the pack or at the bottom of our league. Our seniors are about the same as our sophomores. In my first year, I mean, this is a real question. I don't know if this is where you're going. Like, hey, we're kind of going to have the same outcome if we looked at this realistically, whether the senior player or the sophomore. Hey, we're rolling with the sophomores because that'll get them varsity minutes and get them prepared for the next year by letting them play more. I mean, that's probably a real question. You're not supposed to say that quiet part out loud in front of other people, but I do think that happens. I've always believed we play the 5 best players. Like if I'm a high school varsity, I owe it to the best players. And now who are the best players? They get to play. Like I'm not letting the seniors play because they're seniors, and I'm not playing the sophomores because I'm doing a youth movement. I owe it to the team, to the players to play the 5 best. But if all things are equal, yeah, I mean, I see it. I've seen it now with some friends of mine who are in this situation. Like, sophomore and senior exact same. Like I am going to play that sophomore some, and maybe a good bit. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Well, no, and that's great, and I think you're right, there are gonna be some situations like that. That's not necessarily where I'm getting at, because that's not the situation that I'm in. I said from the very beginning coming in, the best players are gonna play, and it doesn't matter what age and everything, and I think we're right in the fight, in the hunt of making a great district run, and so but my thought is because I have the question for you, but I think I also kind of not that I know the answer, or this is how I would view it, is it's both. I don't want if there's a coach right at this moment thinking, "You know what? I I I just need to start looking towards the future," or it's, "I don't care about the future, I'm only invested in right now." I think either one of those 2, you can kinda get in a little bit of trouble, and I think you're like you said, I think you're doing both. I think you're all in with this team that you have, whether the seniors play a huge role in that or they don't, or not, you're all in with them and figuring out how can we continue to get 1% better every day, to try and move a little bit closer to what the potential is of our team. And every night, like, man, let's just especially the way that we play, we've got a great chance of beating anybody. But then you're also with individual skill work, with being present with your sub-varsity teams and embracing with, like, that process with them. I think that's how you can also speak life into the future of the program and where you see guys and getting them excited about what they're doing and how it matters to you. And that's where this wasn't really a question of, I'm not sure what I need to be doing. I think but it's just more of this time of year, I could see that crossing people's minds. It does cross my mind. I have to reinforce that, no, I'm in it with this team. I didn't create these guys, most of them had another coach for the majority of their high school career. But again, I appreciate how they have bought into the way that where we stand on the floor, the way that we think offensively, how we're trying to guard. But I'm also watching my freshman red and blue, my 2 JV teams, and I'm on the bench with them. I'm in the huddle with them after, reinforcing like, "Hey, this is our future's bright. Like, I love what you guys are doing." And even to the point where sometimes like, "Hey, with our younger players this spring, we're gonna work on what you're doing right there because 'cause you're right on the money." And I think that's that balance. And so I didn't mean to ask you the question knowing where I was already gonna go with it, but that's kind of how I would view it.
Yeah, that's good. I think really good high school coaches invest in the younger ones in the high school part, meaning the JV and the freshmen. Like they have a presence around practice and games, and then even in the middle school ranks. Like I think I mean, I've talked to high school
Yeah.
coaches all over the country. Some have control of their middle school, some it's separate. I think, and here in Atlanta, there's certain communities here in Atlanta where those middle school kids are never going to play 1 minute of varsity, because it's a transfer heavy program. And so they're not going down to watch an eighth grade game, and then you could drive 20 minutes this way or 15, and another program, that high school coach is going to coach every single one of those sixth, seventh, and eighth graders. And if you're on a first name basis and know those kids really well, by the time they get to their freshman year, and there's already a 3 or 4 year relationship, I think you're setting yourself up for great success. So I think really good high school coaches, you're a community coach, meaning you're in the community working with kids from young to old.
And year one, if I'm being critical, I don't think I've done a great job with that. But I've also felt I became very comfortable at my previous job of the system being not the system of style of play, but system overall, culture being set, players teaching it, passing it forward, younger players in a smaller community, just knowing them and them coming up. I think I underestimated the challenge of starting over, but also at a larger school. And so I just being so invested in the high school, getting things like door wraps on our doors, lockers on locks on lockers, doing all of these little things just to try to make it the big time, make them feel really good about where they are. That's one thing. I haven't had the same impact or influence with the junior high, hoping year two or this spring and summer to do that more. But like you said, those are just excuses that I'm using right now to justify it.
Hey, I'm not throwing darts at you.
Hey, man, before I get you out of here, you've already done the speed round, but that was so long ago. And I've added some questions, took some out. And so I'd love to try to see where you're at with some of these things. If it's a rerun or one you've already done before, then
Let's
just go
go
with
for
it.
it.
Okay. Do you stand up or sit down more during games?
Stand.
You're a stand guy? Even
Except
with
for
third and fourth or
except for the daughters' games where they make you sit a lot. They got a seatbelt rule in.
I have to ask you, I had it written down. I don't think I did. Okay, you can't press, but in the half court, are you man or zone?
This is going to disappoint a lot of people because they know. See, the short answer is zone. We have multiple zones. We have taught man, but I realized my very first third grade girls game where we got beat 24 and we were playing man to man, and I had girls who I had practiced with them a total of about an hour and 40 minutes. It was like, man to man, getting your high school varsity, getting a college team to play sound man to man is hard, right? How am I going to get third? So I had to give them some tools to find some more success and just like know what to do, right? So yes, I'm taking a lot. Again, that could be a whole nother episode, but
Yeah.
um,
I appreciate you being honest about that because it is, unless you've done it, I feel like there's a lot of people out there will just scream that zone at the youth level is really bad. And I understand what they're thinking. Like we do want them to learn how to guard man to man. One thing, there's a league in Texas. It's probably all around, and I'm blanking on the name of it. It's upward, but they have a youth leagues in this area, but they do colored bracelets where
yeah.
each team and they come out, and I love that. So they make them play man, and that's great. But you're right.
Kids played upward basketball their very first year,
Okay.
so familiar with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, you're right though. There is a point where, okay, I'm trying to teach them man to man, but we're getting our heads beat in, and that's good for nobody. And like you said, you barely have any practice with them. So I do have a little bit more understanding for those that kind of resort to that, at those younger levels. But it's just interesting to hear from you.
Well, again, zone defense, the reason why it's not great, we do it. So I'm saying something, I'm criticizing what I do, but it's like the good thing about upward basketball is that you have to play man, you have to guard somebody. But in a youth league, it starts at the top with the organization. And so a lot of teams are playing a 2-3 zone, and a girl can't even shoot it from like the free throw line. They're not
That's right.
strong, right? So they don't
Yeah.
score as much. So they maybe don't have as much fun, and then they don't even come back the next year because the
Yep.
game
Yep.
finished 4-2, like 4-2. But so again, I'm pretty passionate about, I could speak, but or the girl who's the tallest girl, her parents or his parents are 6'5" and 6 foot, and they're gonna stand like this in the middle of the zone for the next 6 years of their life and not learn how to play like defense, right? And so there's a developmental stunt there. Anyways, I know this isn't
I like
rapid
that.
fire.
No, it's good. I brought it up. Top 3 dinner guests, any time period.
Oh my gosh. Top 3 dinner guests, any time period?
Can be outside of sports.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the non-sports people came to my mind. I think Jesus. I
Let's
think
take
like,
him off the table because I think you and I are hopefully meeting him first, and then yeah. Who else?
man, this is a good question. I'm looking at my bookshelf here to see. I think of like a founding father, like a Thomas Jefferson or George Washington.
Nice.
I don't know if this might Martin Luther King came to mind, but I don't know if that would be one
Hmm.
of them. Paul.
Yeah. He's on my list. Yep.
So I think that's 3. Is that 3?
Yeah, that's good. Yep. I think we did best basketball movie of all time. For high school, Shot Clock or No Shot Clock?
Definitely Shot Clock.
Yeah. And let's go for high school and college. Do you think players that get 2 fouls in the first half should sit the rest of the first half?
Definitely not.
Damn. That's a
You?
good one. Oh, no. I've played guys with 3 fouls in the first half. I do
Yeah.
like the idea of if you just wanted to have a kind of a rule, it's the one more foul than the quarter. So you get 2 in the first, you're done. You get 3 in the second, you're done, all the way through. I like that way of looking at it, but I think early on, especially teaching players, I think good players can learn how to shift to still being able to play, but being maybe a little less aggressive. But also, you can go back to the way that you coach at the beginning, which is all fouls are errors. And so we want to not foul from the very beginning. I don't like when players or coaches get upset with fouls 4 and 5, but don't give a crap about 1, 2, and 3. Don't even say anything when they get 1, 2, and 3 that are silly. But no, going back to that, I think I've had a player foul out in the first half before. Don't like that, but I also want to teach them, let the game teach the game a little bit early on in the season.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, last one. If this was your last year of coaching, what would you do more of?
Smile, laugh. Yeah,
Like
I don't
that, smile and
that
laugh.
smile and laugh. Doesn't mean it has to be silly, but just remind myself to smile and laugh and have fun with it.
Yeah, that's
I don't I,
good.
I don't think of like, hey, we need to shoot more threes or I need to run this diamond. Like, I'd be curious to hear your other guest answers, but that's what came to mind first for me.
Yeah. Overwhelmingly, it's relationships. And then a lot of them do say have more fun. Because I think without realizing it, we try to promote that feeling with our teams, but then we're tormented or we're miserable majority of the time. And then it goes back to what's your why? Like, what am I really doing this for? Am I trying to get a certain amount of wins? Am I trying to get a certain amount of state championships before my time is done? Am I trying not to get fired? I mean, like, and you've said all the time through, it can be both. You can't want those things, but I think if your overall why isn't to help them to become the best young men that they can be, to be a positive impact in their life, well, then you'll probably be miserable and won't have a lot of fun doing it, in
No,
my opinion.
no, I agree. It's well said. We all need those good reminders for sure. I mean, again, I'm very competitive, and so I have to temper that. It's okay I want it to come out in players, right? But I also it doesn't need to diffuse or negate, the joy of it all.
Yeah. I think so much, and you've said it a few times, so much of it is how we show up every day. I think that matters to players. You've probably played for, and I played for a guy that we had no clue what we were getting in him from day to day. And we'd ask ourselves, have you seen Coach Bliss? What's he like today? And having players live in that uncertainty, that's rough. when I had one explosive halftime with my guys this year. It was a few weeks ago. I thought that they deserved it. I didn't cuss or anything, so I've kept my because that's a non-negotiable in our program is that we're not going to use any foul language and players to players, but coaches to players too. And being in a public school, I've been very pleased with how they've all, for the most part. I hear a couple in the hallway, I'll yell out their name and they'll drop and do push-ups. So I appreciate them. But I think I've had one of those, but my goal is after no matter what the performance was like, to show up the same way that next morning at first period and have them be able to know that their lives may be uncertain at times with their home life, with teachers, with relationships, with basketball, but they can be certain of how myself and our staff show up every day. And I think that gives them the ability to show up the same way, or at least we can hold them accountable to that. So that's been helpful for me.
No, I love that. Yeah, I think sounds like good accountability across the board, which is healthy.
Yeah.
But they really do drop and down and do push-ups in the hallway?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm in our basketball hallway. I don't really catch them around, but they're doing a better job of, just not using it. I think one of my favorite shows is Reacher on Prime. If you and I could get in shape like that guy, because he's in his 40s and he is jacked. But anyway, in Reacher, in the first season, the the cop that he's kind of working with the majority of the time doesn't cuss, and he kind of asks him why, and he says, "I think it's somebody that it shows a low intellect." Or something like that, or a low control, low intellect. And so I always thought, like, why not cuss? Well, because we don't have to. We can use other words, not for any religious reasons or anything.
I agree. I don't think I'll say two things. Not cursing doesn't make you a good person, right? And cursing
No.
as a coach doesn't make you a bad person. But I'm I guess I'm proud to say I have not used profanity as a coach since 2007. Now, I used to have a very healthy dose of profanity. Like, I was really good. But anyways, I mean, and it makes you a better communicator beyond when you don't use it. Now, I think it was Dick DeVinzio even may have said, like, well-placed profanity can have great influence. So at
Ah,
times,
thanks.
I really want to, like, because I could lace it up really nice with some specific
Yeah.
words, and I think it would have strong impact because I don't curse. Um,
We're
but I do.
rebounding like crap. Just doesn't have the same feel to it sometimes as what it could feel, and, but, also too, I think if we wanted to look for a bigger reason, like you said, behind, because good people, bad people, that's not it. It's control. Like, I
Yeah,
want my players to know that they have complete control over everything that they say and do in their life. And if you can't control your mouth, how can you expect to control yourself driving the track, playing off of 2 feet? If you can't control this, you can't control how you play. You can't control those decisions you make as a parent later on in life. So I do think if you're going to make a statement like that, like in our program, we don't do this, there has to be a really strong why behind it, or else. And now I told them too, I'm not controlling them away from the gym or what they do in the car. I like for the locker room when I'm not in there to sound the right way, but I'm not naive to that.
I was at a high school game 2 weeks ago, and a kid dropped an F-bomb at himself. It was at himself, but the ref thought it was towards him, and he got teed up, and
Wow.
I think it was his 5th foul as well, so it was like a huge momentum swing, and like you said, just know why, like, yeah, the control piece is the biggest one. Can you control your words and your mouth and all that? So, yeah.
I appreciate you so much. You told me that we could go for about an hour, and we've gone for an hour and a half. And like I said at the beginning, you're one of my favorite people to get to. And I do feel like I'm still learning from you from afar through what you post on social media, the videos that you put out. I love what you guys do with the hardwood hustle and everything. You're incredible. Anything you'd like to say about PGC coaching and how people can kind of get more plugged in if they don't know about it?
I'll be quick. Yeah, thanks for so PGC coaching, what we say is like you can hit the double win. The double win is be a transformational coach and be a coach who wins championships. And we have a lot of, we have free resources like our Harwood Hustle podcast, and You can go to pgchustle.com. We got tons of free resources there for coaches. We obviously have a paid membership in community we recently launched a new like program pass that's really affordable for like the high school coach who can get it for their entire program and feeder programs. And so coaches have really liked that. Yeah, we like to give out free resources. So would love for anybody to catch us on any of those things I mentioned.
Just said it's program pass. That's what you said that you're giving out, or
Well, it's just
a
it's a
membership.
program. It's a membership option, but it gives it to like in a high school staff, your girls, your boys, the feeder, all for like a really good rate. So for an annual 1-year membership.
I appreciate that. I'm going to check it out for sure because at Midway, I think our girls coach is really open to doing things differently. And I know I've got great assistant coaches that are sponges. A lot of the way I talk, I think, and teach is from my days at PGC. And so you guys are still such a huge influence over me and our program. And I just really appreciate you, man, your friendship. Thank you for giving up your time this time of year coming on. And this was awesome, man.
Feelings mutual. Always love it. Always good to connect with you. And yeah, I need to get out to Texas here soon so we can do a clinic again.
Come on down to Midway. Got great hotels here. Waco it's really a beautiful area. It's growing up a lot. Chip and Joanne and Baylor have a lot to do with that. But man, yeah, would love to have you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Matt. Appreciate it.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI Podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.